Welcome to the Empower Her Wellness Podcast. I'm Morgan, and I'm thrilled to be your host and wellness coach as we navigate the path to a healthier, more confident you. As the owner of Get Fit With Me, I bring years of experience in personal training, nutrition, and coaching to each episode. Join me as we explore practical tips and strategies for fitness, nutrition, mindset, and more, all tailored for busy women just like you. Let's empower your wellness journey and achieve lasting transformation together. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to an episode of the Empower Her Wellness Podcast. I am really excited to have a new friend and colleague with me today, Dr. Makayla Anderson. She is a naturopathic doctor and certified nutrition specialist. It's probably been about a month, but we had some coffee and we got talking about so many trends, so many things in the nutrition world. And I was like, I absolutely need to have you on our podcast because she is a wealth of knowledge, and I just cannot wait to have some conversations with her. Today we're only going to be covering one small topic, but don't worry, we're going to have her back for more episodes because there's so much in the nutrition world and there's so much crap out there that trying to wean through and figuring out is something even legit or if it's not. So I'm super excited to welcome you. Thank you, Mikayla, for being here today.
Morgan, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I'm so honored. This is so fun. Thank you.
Yeah. So give us a little bit of background. How did you get into what you're doing? Where did you go to school? How long have you had your business?
Yeah, so originally I wanted to be a PA. So I wanted to go to PA school. When I graduated with my bachelor's, that was kind of always the plan. I wanted to apply to PA schools and go that route. Fast forward a couple years, I wasn't able to get into school. I was doing a lot of working with PAs and different jobs, different atmospheres. And I really got to thinking, is this really what I want to do? There's got to be a reason I'm not getting into school. There's got to be some bigger reason this isn't working out for me. So I sat down and I started thinking about the things that I really found as a priority in my life, which at the time happened to be nutrition and more of a natural means of healing, natural health. My parents raised us out in the garden and growing and cooking a lot of our own meals and food at home. And my mom would focus on supporting the body whenever we were sick instead of just rushing to get medications. So I kind of dialed in on that and I was like, okay, maybe that's what I want to do. And that's how I want to treat patients. So I started looking up careers that would give me that opportunity and found naturopathic medicine, which checked a lot of boxes. I wanted to work with patients face to face. I wanted to do a lot of testing, so blood work or functional tests, really to figure out what's causing, symptoms and what's causing the patient pain or, discomfort. And then also focus on natural healing. So nature as the source of our medicine and food as a source of our medicine, and then how our lifestyle impacts our health, whether that's sleep or movement or stress. I applied to school and got accepted, and within a couple months moved down to Chicago area. And then, fast forward 4 years, I graduated with a Doctor of Naturopathic Medicine degree and quickly moved home, opened a business, became a certified nutrition specialist, and now I'm a licensed dietitian as well, or dietitian nutritionist. So I feel like I'm living life in the fast forward button. It's been really fast, but really fun. And now I own Embody Natural Health and Nutrition, which is based out of Lansing. It is a naturopathic and clinical nutrition office. And I work with a lot of women and men, but mostly women, looking for help with nutrition, hormones, gut health, autoimmunity, thyroid. So it's been really fun, and I'm going into year 3 of that. So here's to much more.
Congrats. Congrats on starting your
Thanks.
business and moving into year 3. I feel like give it another year and you'll start to like be able to take a like an exhale. I
Yeah,
feel like your first couple of years is just like we're 2 years in. What have I done?
I totally agree. Especially after talking with you at coffee, like you're telling me how many years in you were and what you've learned. And it was inspirational because there that in between, just starting and getting your feet on the ground, it's kind of you're not sure what to do next, where to go, what to focus your efforts on, not even sure how to do some business things, some tech things. So it's nice to hear, there's light at the end of the tunnel and we're growing into that.
There is. And I think one of the fun parts for me when I started that we kind of talked about is when you're starting, you're kind of working with anybody and everybody because you're still trying to define who you want to work with. And I think that's where this conversation kind of came to the head is we were talking about fasting, we were talking about GLP-1s, we were talking about keto, and we just kind of got down this rabbit hole of talking about all these things out there. And then
Hmm.
when our clients come to us, they're all things they've tried that just haven't been successful. But they don't always know why they're not successful. I'm excited to talk about keto a little bit today. And I'm going to be honest. I know a decent amount about keto, but it is not something that like lives in my brain like strength training does. For those of you who like watch other episodes, you know I can spit off about strength training. I actually have notes and I did a lot of research because I was like, why was this invented? And before we get into like going back and forth, I want to share because I did not know this. The ketogenic diet is a very low carb, high fat designed to shift the body towards producing ketones and relying more on fat for fuel. It was originally created as a medical nutrition therapy for epilepsy. It was never meant or was created for weight loss, but somehow we've decided as a society we're going to take it on and use it for weight loss. In 1921, Dr. Russell Wilder at the Mayo Clinic coined the term ketogenic diet as a way to mimic the seizure reducing effects of fasting with food. It is still clinically used today, especially for drug resistant epilepsy. So I
Mm.
think it's so crazy that one of these diets that is super common in the world of women
Hmm.
wasn't even designed for what women are using it for. So
Yeah.
tell me, what are your thoughts? What did like when someone says I'm on keto or I did keto or I want to do keto, what are like your first thoughts that come to mind?
Yeah, this is such a cool conversation. Thank you for the history too, by the way, because that was new to me, learning that it was originally for epilepsy and hearing you read that back, it kind of makes sense because keto, like you said, emphasizes like higher healthy fats. And higher healthy fats, lipids, the body uses to support the nervous system and our nerves and our brain and our neurological health. And so it kind of does make sense that it was originally used to support epilepsy because it is a more, neurological condition. So, yeah, I love that. My thoughts around keto. I do think it has become a little trendy. My first reaction when talking, should I use the keto diet? Should I recommend this to a patient? Is it really depends on the person. And that is such a naturopathic perspective. Everyone is different, everyone is individualized. I tend to think the word diet is restrictive. I think eating mindfully and intuitively is really how we should all approach nutrition. But diet is inherently good or bad. I think it's really about more about like who's using it, what for, when in their life they're going to make these nutrition changes, what's going on in their life that may impact this, and then of course why. Why are we going to make these changes? I've seen keto be very successful for women who are looking to lose weight or feel better with the food choices that they're making, but it can also lead to further dysregulation in others if it's not paired with healthier lifestyle habits or underlying issues aren't addressed first. So I kind of see the keto diet more as a tool as opposed to a one size fits all diet.
I love that because I see it the same way. Like it is a tool, just like food logging is a tool in our toolbox. The one thing that always gets me with anything that's coined a diet, even fasting. I know the word diet is not with fasting, but it is restrictive. And anything that we are restrictive around, we either tend to want it more and then we binge and then we've created an emotional and unhealthy relationship there, or we can sustain it for maybe a couple months, maybe even a couple years. But then you have, let's say, a wedding and you haven't had those carbs, and all of a sudden, then there's that spiral effect. So there's those two sides of it that anything with a diet can be restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
And having that flexibility in there.
I totally agree. I think when people think of keto, they think of unlimited bacon and butter
Yes.
and cheese and, no intentional rules around how much of, fat and protein and carbs, but more so I'm just going to focus on eating these quote unquote high fat foods. It's kind of where the intentionality of the keto diet can really move the needle more so for some people than others. So if we're more intentional in eating healthy fats and or healthy fats in general as opposed to unhealthy fats on the keto diet, plus pairing that with moderate or high protein, and then being intentional with our carb intake too. We still need carbs, we still need that glucose, especially for exercising, but our carbs can come from sources other than pizza and bread and chips. We can just be a little bit more intentional with how we eat those carbs and when.
Yeah, and I think you're 100% on point there because we think of high fat, so I'm going to eat cheese or I'm going to go to McDonald's and I'm just going to take the bread off. Like
Mm-hmm.
our quality of choices, I find when people go to keto, their quality doesn't improve. They just pull things out and we continue to and I don't like to use the word bad for when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to food, but those foods that just don't fuel our body and they don't make our body feel good. Like we all know when we eat something, like in the moment it may bring that emotional joy, but we know our stomach is not going to like it later on. But that's a
Yeah.
choice we are making. And
Yeah.
I think with keto, you're right, they're not going towards those healthier fats or they're cutting out carbs completely when we need to still
Mm-hmm.
focus on fiber. We
Mm-hmm.
need to focus on protein and there needs to be structure. It's not just a and I don't think people notice that you need structured just like you would if you're going to change your eating habits. Everything we do in life needs structure of some point.
Yeah, I completely agree. One of the questions I always ask women before even making a dietary change is, are you eating enough? Because oftentimes they're
Mm,
not, especially as women. And especially
yeah.
you and I, we've talked about this. Like, we came from the millennial, low carb, low fat, you know, cut your calories, cut your food, exercise
Mhm.
more to get the results that you're looking for. But we really need to be fueling our bodies. And to your point, I love pizza, but I know I'm not going to feel great after eating it. But, there's better things I can consume that are carbohydrate rich that will benefit me from a nourishment perspective and a nutritious perspective, as opposed to that, you know, that instant gratification that pizza might bring. I'll still eat it.
Oh, absolutely. And anytime I know, like, I'm going out to dinner with a girlfriend tonight and I know I'm going to indulge. So,
Hmm.
knowing that I'm probably not going to want to order a vegetable at dinner, I'm going to make sure
Right.
I hit my vegetables prior. Like,
Hmm.
it's not that I'm saying, oh, well, my body doesn't need that today, but I'm preparing for what the day has in
Hmm.
store. And some of the biggest things I find is as women, we see, and I know men, you probably go through this as well, but because I primarily work with women, we see all these trends and we think they are going to work for us. And there has been shown that keto works for certain people. For instance, PCOS, it can be helpful because it helps bring some of the anti inflammatory down, helping with blood sugar control and short term weight loss, and then type 2 diabetes or pre diabetes. Like, but just
Hmm.
because you fall under those chronic conditions still doesn't mean it works for you. So, how would you navigate with a client? So, if I came to you and I'm like, I want to try the keto diet, I don't have any of those. I'm not type 2 diabetic. I'm not
Hmm.
pre-diabetes. I don't have PCOS. What would you recommend us do before just jumping right into, oh yes, go do keto and try it to see if it
Mm.
works?
Hmm. I love that question. I would say first, how do you currently approach nutrition?
Mm,
So what do you eat on a daily basis? Again, are you eating enough? Are you eating enough protein? What does your physical activity look like? Are you eating enough to sustain that? Are you eating enough to meet your physical activity goals if you're building muscle, you're looking to lose fat? How can we adapt your current nutrition state to meet your goals? And how can keto play a role in that? But there's so much more that goes into overall health than just our diet. So I'm always thinking, like, what does this person's stress load look like, and how are they managing stress?
Yes.
And what does their gut health look like? What season of life are they in? Did they just give birth, or did they just move, or just get a new job? And how sustainable can these dietary changes be right now, especially with keto, because this is kind of a diet that, like you said, it can be a little socially restrictive. If we're going out to eat or going to
Mhm.
a wedding, maybe there aren't as many options available to us. It requires a lot of planning too. So you mentioned meal plans. This requires knowing what you're going to get from the grocery store and knowing what to use in your meals and how much of certain things to eat. And if you're really dialed in, even measuring those things. The downside to some of these big changes in, committing to a diet like keto is that it can take away from that intuitive eating, and people can kind of disconnect from that and then create even more fear around carbs. If we're talking a low carb diet, it can be hard to eventually transition off the keto diet and eat more carbs again. Sometimes that's scary for women. There's a lot of mindsets that can either be like, I'm on keto, or I've failed it, if I have one mistake or cheat day. But I think we need to dial it back even further and think about what our body responds to best before we kind of, again, this isn't like a one size fits all approach.
Right. And for those of you who are just listening, you're not watching, we are using the quotations with our fingers so much. I'm like watching her do it, I'm doing it. And I'm like, I feel like I need to let you guys know,
Mm,
like when we say bad or cheat or diet, like we're using quotations around that because that's also the verbiage that we use. It's not something that we feel hard and fast on. So it's like that in between. We want food. Food shouldn't be, we shouldn't have to punish ourselves for exercising more or eating less. And I
mhm,
love that you mentioned the stress in the area of life you're in. If you're a
mm,
new mom and you are breastfeeding or you're not breastfeeding and you're just managing a new child in the household, to take on something like this stress-wise is also going to mess with our hormones. It's going to mess with our
mhm,
gut health. So how do all these kind of play into, and it's not necessarily because we're so low in carbs, but it's because low in carbs can cause some imbalances in our gut, our hormones in
mhm,
these other areas, correct?
mhm. Yeah, I think we're talking about like maybe places where keto doesn't fit, or where committing to a dietary change like this can even backfire if certain things aren't addressed first. And chronic stress is kind of where I think my mind lands first. Chronic stress or high cortisol, the postpartum period is usually very stressful for women. And, we mentioned moving, changing jobs, any other sort of familial stress, financial stress that can lead to that chronic adrenal overdrive picture is probably not a good idea to drop your carbohydrates, as that can be another stressor on the body. And the body just perceives stress as stress. So it won't be able to tell the difference, especially if you transition to a keto diet and this affects your caloric intake negatively. You find you're eating less. That can also be perceived as a stressor on the body. Thyroid dysfunction can also kind of be a hit or miss with keto. Some women really, really find success on keto with thyroid dysfunction. Others are not able to sustain it. So it's, again, it goes back to personalizing this per person. Hormones, you mentioned how this can be helpful for PCOS. Sometimes with other cycle irregularities or nutrient deficiencies, losses of ovulation, any perceived like lack of energy or of available energy consumption, whether that is from low carbs, can downregulate hormone function further too. I always like to say the body's trying to protect us, not work against us when we see symptoms present. So, what is the body trying to protect us from? Are we having cycle irregularities because we're iron deficient, or something else? And sometimes, if those things are already occurring, starting any diet, the keto diet, something low carb, just may not be the best for that particular woman at that time.
I also think of women who I just did a class at Flex City. Have you ever taken a class at Flex City in Lansing?
No, no.
So, very similar to Orange Theory in the sense of concept of like you do cardio for like 10, then you jump off and you do
Mm,
weights for 10. It's all coached and led, but it's high intensity. Like
hmm.
it's fun. I love it because like every once in a while I like to switch up what I do. A friend
Yeah.
invited me and I had a lot of fun, but I know a lot of women that just do that. That's their
Mm,
primary form of exercise and they thrive on it. And like I love that they found a way to move their bodies that they love. But then I hear when they're eating low carb and then we have
mm,
injuries and then we're doing these high intensity things and the recovery isn't there. So, why would, if somebody who's training hard or doing high intensity, why would keto maybe also not be a good fit for that recovery period? And I know stress also plays into there, but what would be a
mm.
reason why they should maybe not look at that in that stage of life either?
Ooh, really good question. For athletic performance, we need carbohydrates. Simply put, any athletic performance, especially if you're doing mostly aerobic and cardio, the body is going to use those carbs first, that glucose first, in order to give you that initial energy push and keep your stamina high. If we are consuming low carbs, that can impose the risk of decreasing our athletic performance. Women who can exercise on that high intensity level, even if they enjoy it, but are eating low carb, run the risk of unintentionally adding extra stress to their body that can affect their hormones, their blood sugar insulin results or relationship. And then we can see this affect their cycles and their fertility. And I tend to approach any sort of high intensity exercise as a means to enhance athletic performance and not a means to emphasize on a daily basis as the only form of movement a woman should be participating in, especially as women knowing we're going to go through menopause later in life. One of the biggest changes that can happen during menopause is developing osteoporosis and decreased bone density. And something we can do to preserve bone density as younger women is strength train. So whether or not, we're doing mostly cardio, incorporating some sort of resistance training, whether that's body weight or bands or dumbbells or heavy lifting, is going to preserve the bone and the muscle. All of that to say, the carbs are so important for physical activity in general that if I were to be working with a woman who had physical activity goals and exercise goals, but wanted to really reduce her carb intake, such as with a diet like keto, I would suggest an alternative dietary change because she still will need a lot of those carbs. Sometimes it's helpful to kickstart weight loss if that's maybe the physical activity goal with something like keto, but I do not think it should be used long term. The carbs will be important.
I love that you said kickstart because that's, I think, one of the main things that I see, or one of the main things I hear women say is like, oh, Janet over there, she just lost 10 pounds in the last 2 weeks by switching to keto. Most of that is not going to be fat loss, it's going to
Hmm.
be water weight that we've lost. And then they plateau. Typically, they have some sort of fast, and then there's a little bit slower, and then people plateau and they wonder why.
Hmm.
And that's where I was looking up, but the research does not show that it is clearly superior long term to other sustainable structured nutrition approaches. Like
Mm.
keto, there's nothing out there that's been like, this is the most sustainable way for weight loss. And I love that you keep saying it's personalized because we are all so different that if it makes you feel good and it makes your body feel good and you feel like you can do it, and maybe, and I think that's the other thing is some people say they're on keto and then you hear them talk about it and you're really like, no, you're just kind of a little low carb. But in
Hmm.
their mind, they're doing keto compared to what they were doing before. So
Hmm.
I think
Mm.
that's the other misconception out there is people don't really follow it to a T. None of us follow anything to a T because in reality, if we were to follow things to a T, we wouldn't have questions.
Hmm.
We would see the results we want, but we all need to throw our own little spin on it of like, oh, but I think I can do it better.
Right. Yes, I totally agree. I think that goes back to like the earlier point that we talked about where keto could just be a fun little diet change to eat a lot of bacon and cheese and butter. And like those things, can benefit our health and be nourishing, but keto is a lot more numerical, for lack of a better word, especially for people who track macros.
Mm.
Keto is going to be very high in the fat macro, moderate to high in the protein macro, and then very low in the carb macro. But you also need to know how many calories you should be eating and what your composition or percentage of food that you're eating is a fat and is a protein and is a carb. And that's where, again, it's very personalized for people and what their body currently looks like, their stature, what their goals are for their body, their physical activity, how well they're sleeping at night. All of these things play
Yes.
into the kind of results we're looking to see with nutrition.
And life changes. Like your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, premenopausal, menopausal, our body
Mm,
changes. And like you and
yes.
I are similar in age and our bodies and the way our bodies react to things and our activity levels and all of there's so many factors that come into play.
Hmm.
And that is part of the reason why fitness and nutrition is so frustrating, but I also find it so fun from
Hmm.
my perspective and my profession is because we get to work individually with each and every person and
Hmm.
say, okay, what type of exercise do we enjoy? Absolutely none of it. Okay, let's find one type. And it might be a
Yeah.
YouTube dance video, or maybe it's walking, or we all like finding that one piece that we doesn't make it feel like it's exercise.
Hmm.
And then, okay, we've got that down. Then what's that next thing? And for nutrition, protein, fiber, vegetables. The number of women because I have people do food logs
Hmm.
before we even do anything. Everybody's got a food log.
Love
And
that.
I love always asking people before I tell you feedback, what do you see in your nutrition? Some people are like,
Mm.
I see this, this, and this. Some people are like, that was a great week for me. And it just gives me insight into their
Mm.
knowledge in nutrition because we
Hmm.
are all differently educated as well. Some of us
Hmm.
go down a rabbit hole and we want to learn it. Others, we just we just follow blindly. And we're like,
Hmm.
Janet down the road said I need to do it, so I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that that is such a great way to have patients and clients reflect on their baseline nutrition, without even changing anything. What does your diet look like for you on a daily basis? This is something I ask patients too when I am sitting down with them for their initial appointment. I'm always asking if they could give me a 24-hour diet recall. Tell me everything you had to eat in the last 24 hours, even if it was yesterday. And 9 times out of 10, they say, "Oh, yesterday was a bad day." And I think that's
Yeah.
because when they're talking to somebody who's trying to help them with their nutrition or guide them, they feel embarrassed about the things that they're eating. None of us are perfect. I enjoy living and eating on like an 80/20, rule.
Mm-hmm.
So there's never judgment when it comes to nutrition. We all want to continue to improve, and I think the best way to do that is to learn what would help our body the best from a personalized level and how we can make that more sustainable in our lifestyles. I am not even one to recommend diets most of the time to patients, but if they're coming in with, or we're treating maybe a thyroid condition or low progesterone or diabetes, there are many ways that I recommend foods that contain nutrients to benefit these conditions, or eating strategies to help reduce blood sugar and, improve insulin sensitivity. So there's ways we can use food and nutrition as a tool that goes beyond just a diet that we have to follow to cut our calories. We can actually use the nutrients in food to benefit the condition that we're trying to treat.
And I think knowing which diet fits which condition, like how we
Mm,
started, a ketogenic diet was not designed for weight loss.
yeah.
Somewhere along the line, somebody decided to try it, or somebody who was diagnosed with epilepsy tried it, noticed they lost weight, and said, oh, this is now a weight loss diet. Like,
Yeah.
it is crazy what we have done. And we've mentioned cutting carbs, the fear of carbs, and the cutting calories. And as women specifically, I think the term that has been ingrained in our mind that is getting easier to fight against, but is still not there is the eat less, move more.
Hmm.
Is that terminology that like it's not 100% wrong, but the way it's interpreted is wrong, is what I believe. Like,
Hmm.
we need to move our body and calories in, calories out. So, like, the sentence itself is not 100% wrong, but how we interpret it as a human is wrong. We
Hmm.
take it on of like, oh, well, I need to move more. Like, it's so drastic when we do
Hmm.
that. And I always want people to try things, to learn, to notice what works for them, what doesn't note for them or
Hmm.
work for them. But the thing is, you got to note it and you
Yeah.
have to give it a chance. I don't care what you try. You have to be consistent and you have to give it a chance to
Hmm.
see if it even works. Because
Hmm.
how many people have you worked with that you're like, oh, I did this. How long did you do it? 7 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in the naturopathic field and nutrition, changes take time because we are working on supporting the body's ability to do something instead of, for lack of a better word, synthetically forcing the body to do something or suppressing the body from doing something. We're using nutrition, using exercise to stimulate the body's natural ability to do something. I really like what you said about calories in, calories out. From a foundational weight loss perspective, that is how things work. But that doesn't mean starve yourself and over exercise because that's going to have a much larger impact on your health that goes beyond weight loss or beyond weight in general, that can just be more damaging long term. And when it comes to physical activity too, and I know you do this with your clients, and movement is movement. So if we're out doing yard work or if we're playing with the kids or we're doing house chores, that's movement. Intentional exercise would be a little different, where you're lifting weights or you're going on a run or you're going swimming to initiate an exercise response. But just living a little bit more of an active lifestyle can still lead to a lot of these goals that we're talking about.
Yeah, I love diet talk because I find that I'm somewhere in the middle of the spectrum of like everybody's individual. It may or may not work for you, but I always try to get people to see if you do this, can you do this the rest of your life? Because
Hmm.
that's the goal. Because if there's a stopping point in your mind of like, when I do this, there's a stopping point, then that's not sustainable. Doesn't mean you
Hmm.
shouldn't try it, but then we should look back at those deep down habits when we look at like the recall. I love that you do a 1 day recall and you are 100% correct. Oh, it was a bad day. My favorite is when I ask people to food log and I have to say, just because I'm looking, please do not eat an absurd amount of vegetables because you know I'm
Yeah.
going to like eat normal. The amount of people that I'm
Yes.
like, wow, you're a great vegetable eater. And they're like, oh no, it's because you were looking. I'm like, okay, well, we need to do another one now. Please do not change your eating habits because I'm looking at it.
Yes. Like I want an honest, I want to know what you're doing right now so that I can help you improve. And I see this too with people who do want to change their calories or their macros. I always say, let's track a baseline day or week.
Mhm.
If you are somebody, and this goes back to like eating intuitively and not restricting, but if you are somebody that is interested in like tracking and logging your foods and being a little bit more precise with that, this gives people a huge insight into portion control and choosing correct foods and how to structure their plates. And once they've kind of learned that knowledge, like, oh, I can eat this much and it's maybe this many carbs or this much and it's this much protein, then we don't have to live in the restriction of measuring things anymore, weighing food. And then we kind of understand what we're eating. And that is intuitive, in my opinion, more than, tracking every calorie, tracking every gram.
Right. And I always tell my clients, I said, my goal is that 4 ounces of chicken, 130 calories, 22 grams of protein, that should not live rent free in your brain.
Completely agree. Hmm.
we're a different story because we educate about it. But it has been living in my brain rent free before I got to this point in life, which is
Yeah.
we think about those. I don't want my clients to think about that. I don't want them to be
Mhm.
like, and that's where the intuitive eating, the focusing on the foundation and the basics. Like we believe it's too easy, so we stop doing it, which is
Mhm.
why we go towards keto or we go towards fasting because we are not seeing the results we want fast enough, but we are
Mm.
skipping over the foundation. So that being said, there's so much noise and
Mhm.
I want to know your like takeaway advice, but mine is always like it didn't take you overnight to realize that you wanted to make a change in your weight and your body shape and how you feel.
Mhm.
Therefore, you're not going to make that change overnight. Like you didn't
Mhm.
just wake up one day and say, "Oh, all of a sudden I gained 35 pounds overnight." No, if weight is something that you hang on to, you got to know it takes time. Just like it took time to gradually build, it's going
Mhm.
to take time to gradually decrease.
Yes, I completely agree. It all takes time and discipline and patience and consistency and believing in yourself that if you really want to make this change in your health, that you have to kind of put in the effort to make the change. And beyond just a diet, quote unquote diet change, if there is something else that's causing you to hang on to weight, whether that's an unaddressed hormone condition or chronic stress or you name it, then that also needs to be addressed because we're looking
Mm.
at the body from a whole health perspective. And if those imbalances are not addressed, there's potential that the dietary changes can just make those things worse.
Yeah, and that is where you are such a expert and of like you're not just the nutrition portion, but if they have honestly worked on their diet, if you're like you are consistently doing the things and things are still not happening,
Hmm.
you can look at their blood work. You are that resource that I refer out to say, "Hey, you've been doing the things. I've seen
Hmm.
you. You're being honest with yourself, you're being honest with me. Let's go see if there's something else that we
Hmm.
physically cannot see happening." And I think that scares some people because,
Hmm.
well, what are we going to find?
Yeah.
Or nothing. There's nothing wrong, which I
Yeah.
think as women, we get told it's normal. Just cuz
Hmm.
it's just cuz it's normal does not mean you have to live with it though.
Correct. Oh, I hear this. I hear this so, so much, Morgan. Women, people will sit in front of me and tell me that their doctor told them all their labs were normal and they just don't agree. They're okay, maybe the numbers are normal, but I don't feel normal. I have all of these symptoms. I'm being told they're in my head. It's just not the case. This is where it requires listening and advocating for the patient or the client and saying, okay, let's dig a little deeper. I believe you. I hear you. Maybe some of your labs are normal, but let's dig a little bit deeper because there's usually something else underlying these symptoms. And sometimes it's lifestyle, sometimes it's environmental exposures, sometimes it's chronic stress, sometimes there is an underlying condition. But one of the things that we really emphasize in naturopathic philosophy is finding the root cause. And the root cause can be any of those things: gut health, underlying condition, environmental exposures, you name it. So, this is how I approach the majority of my patient cases. Yes, we're going to focus on nutrition. I'm going to help you with that because food is medicine and we eat food every single day. How can we do that to benefit our health? But also, what do we need to address to make you symptom free and correct that underlying root cause?
And that root cause which we're afraid to look because we know there's work behind it. It's not the quick
Mm.
fix. It takes more time, more energy, more education, which some of us don't want to do. And that's okay. You
Mm-hmm.
are your own person. You have the right to choose whatever medical advice you want to take. But it take when we choose the root cause and we find it and we fix it,
Mm-hmm.
then we're no longer putting a band-aid on the wound that keeps not healing. We finally get
Yeah.
to heal that wound.
Yeah.
And it And it's not fast. I can't imagine
Mm,
you've worked with anybody where like, "Oh my gosh, it's been 24 hours. I'm a brand new human." Like, no. Or they're like, "I lost
definitely
all that
not.
weight overnight." If that is the case, you should be a zillionaire. So,
Magic.
magic.
Oh, that's
Oh my
definitely not the
goodness.
case. Yeah, that I would like some of that sometimes, some magic. But it's true, especially in the naturopathic world, because we are working on supporting the body's natural inherent ability to do things. I like to remind patients that it's a commitment and it's going to take time and consistency. And there is no magic pill. I can't prescribe. I'm not going to prescribe. So we're going to really hone in on what the body needs. And I most of the time when patients end up working with me, they've gone through providers and different trends that they've tried, and they either haven't felt heard, they haven't felt listened to, they haven't gotten the answers they've been looking for, or they've had no results on their own. And by the time they wind up with me, they're ready to make those changes because they're so tired of feeling the way that they've been feeling and so tired of not feeling heard. And
Mhm.
that makes my job easier because I can give them as many resources as possible, do all of the comprehensive testing with them, explain to them what's happening in their body. And then by the time I present them a treatment plan with nutrition, with lifestyle recommendations, with personalized supplements, they're ready to start that. And that's exactly where I need to meet them. There's I always say it takes two to tango. So if I'm going to help you out, you're going to leave my office and you're going to give it your best effort.
Mhm.
And then if we're working together like that, you're going to see results.
I love it. So before we wrap up, a few things I always like to do is I like to give you a chance to share where people can find you, how they can contact you. Anything you share, we'll make sure like links we'll make sure to put in the show notes so people can reference it there. Because you guys know my email is a pain in the butt to say. So you can always go to the show notes and find my email there. But Mikayla, where can people find you on social, find your clinic, connect with you, all of that sort of stuff? And then once we do that, we'll do a final key takeaway from today.
Oh, okay. Well, embodynaturalhealth.com is my website for Embody, and you can book online there, but you can also call or text the phone number that is on the website. Facebook is Embody Natural Health and Nutrition. Instagram, I have two accounts. I have the Embody Naturopathic, which is the business account, or you can follow my personal, which is MikaylaAnderson.nd, naturopathic doctor. I'm also on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
Forget
And she
anything,
is
Morgan?
local.
Oh, yes.
No. And you are local and you're on the west side. Remind me what like highway intersection you're on here in Lansing.
Crossroads, yes. I am near the corner of Kreitz and St. Joe in Lansing, so I happen to skip off the highway, super convenient. But I do telehealth as well, so I do see patients from across the state of Michigan via telehealth and some from outside of the state. So that's been fun to see patients kind of far and wide. But yes, I love the face-to-face interaction. I love sitting down and talking and getting to know you in person. So whatever works best.
Awesome. I know. We met at a networking group. I can't remember if I said that in the beginning. And through a mutual friend, one of your childhood best friends that I shout out to Peculiar Coffee. They are fantastic. But she connected us and we went to 517 coffee and we just chatted. And I was like, I wish it wasn't downpouring and we didn't have other things to get to because I think we could have
I
sat all
know.
day and talked.
Honestly, we should have just recorded that for the podcast because that was really good.
Yes. Well, maybe I've got somebody in mind. So, for those of you who do watch live, you know that these are all virtual. I'm never like sitting next to the person. I know somebody who has an in person podcast studio that we can rent out for in person podcasts. So, that is
Fun.
possibly to come by the end of this year. I'm going to go learn more
Cool.
about it in the upcoming weeks. So, for some of my local guests, I would love to be able to like be in front. Virtual is wonderful because we can be far and wide, but it's
Hmm.
so fun to like be in person sometimes. So there are big
Yeah.
news coming there down the road. But back
Cool.
to topic at hand so we can wrap up so that you guys are not like, what are you guys chit-chatting about? What is one last piece of advice you can give to any woman listening right now that they should either remember from today, or if they're going to go and implement anything from today, what would it be?
Oh, I think I have to go back to my earlier point. Everything is personalized. Nutrition's personalized, supplements are personalized. What you see online, some influencer taking supplements may not work for you. Stress, lifestyle, sleep, everything should be personalized to your health and your life. And if you need help and guidance from a professional to make that work for you, there's both of us are here. We'd love to help, but it health is not a one size fits all system, and I think that we're starting to really move away from that, which is good, and I'm excited to see those kind of changes continue in the medical world.
I'm just going to ditto everything you said. Like everything you said are things that I've said on previous podcasts. I'm like, our verbiage is so much of the same, and I love it. That,
Yeah.
like, just because it works for your best friend doesn't mean it's going to work for you, or just because it's normal for her does not mean it is a normal symptom for you. Advocate
Hmm.
for yourself, ask questions, reach out. Google is not a medical professional, neither is ChatGPT. So reach out to people who are, ask questions, and if you don't like the response, go get a second opinion, a third opinion. You do not have to settle in your health to feel good.
Hmm.
So
Love
on
it.
that note, Mikayla, thank you so much for joining us here today. Remember, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. For those of you who are listening on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you tune in, make sure to follow us for weekly new episodes every single Thursday. We've got some fun ones coming up. May is going to be stress month, so we've got some fun stress management conversations that I'm really excited to talk about. It is also Mother's Day, so I was kind of leaning into some of the stressors that we feel towards the end of the school year, holidays, warmer weather, just that transition that happens. And it is Mother's Day, so we're going to celebrate that as well. So remember to tune in every Thursday. Check the show notes for links and things that we've referenced today, and I will see you all back here next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Empower Her Wellness podcast. I hope you found today's episode inspiring and packed with actionable tips. Remember, your journey to becoming the strongest, most confident version of yourself is just beginning. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode and join our community of empowered women. Until next time, stay strong and stay confident.